we're going to turn it over to my pastor. Amen. He will be teaching tonight the Word of God. Amen. We need Bible study every week. We need it more than just once a week, because we can pick up the Bible ourselves, amen, and study. So tonight we are having the man of God to come up and teach the Word. So have an ear to hear. Amen. Be blessed.
Amen. Good evening. Amen. It's a blessing to be in the house of God. Amen. It is a blessing to share in his word again, and to fellowship with the saints. Good to see you in the house, and those that are viewing via Facebook. Thank you, Deep, for your prayer. And we definitely is needed. Speaking of prayer, we want to ask that the church be in continual prayer for the Bonner family in the passing of our brother Alfred Bonner. Amen. As he is a member of this church and has served in this community. So let us keep the family, Bonners, those that are connected with him in prayer. Not only that family, but as we all have witnessed the Floyd family, let us continue to be prayerful of that situation, and definitely prayerful of the family in their time of need. As the cameras, lights dim, amen, their pain and burden will still press on a while, so we want to continually, amen, petition God to comfort their hearts in their time of need. Tonight we want to continue our study. We have been talking a great deal about shifting from membership to discipleship. We was talking about that because it is a need for change. It is a need for a shifting, amen, for us to see that this walk of Christianity is a lot bigger than religious activities and just coming to the house of God. Amen. It's about a new life, a new way of thinking, a life under the authority and rule of God, where we can experience heaven's rule down here on earth. We've talked about a lot of scripture relating to this. The last week we began the new scripture. That was Matthew, the 11th chapter. We dealt with 28 through 30. But we also just picked up verse number 25. Because in verse number 25 it talked about how God has not revealed these treasures and truths to human wisdom and human way of thinking, but that unto infants. So we have to humble ourselves and come to him as an infant, dependency upon him. And so we dealt with a few things that I want to kind of slowly get back into tonight. I don't want to press a lot on what we've been talking about because it's really lengthy. I really pray to God that you're receiving this and taking it in, because it's imperative to the victory that we are all desiring to have. But if we're not going to ingest it and take it in, then we'll forfeit a lot of these blessings that God has for us. And so last week we talked about God giving us this rest, light and power burdens upon us, turning those burdens into anger, pessimism, and negativity, hopelessness, despair. And he said that he can give us rest, and living as a kingdom disciple can alleviate the pressures of life. Living as a kingdom disciple can help us, amen, handle these particular situations rather than these particular situations handling us. But he said the only way we'll do that is there's 3 active verbs or commands that he gave us. Do y'all remember those 3? At least y'all remember that one from last week. Come. Take and learn. All right, come, take, and learn. And so the first verb was come. And last week we kind of honed in on come for about, well, extended period of time. And we learned some things about coming, because in order to come to Jesus, you had to leave. You have not only if you're coming, you're simultaneously leaving. If you're coming to him, you're leaving something else behind. And we said one of the dangers is coming to Christ. And when we come to Christ and fail to leave those things behind, Jesus Christ still accepts us, but we will never be able to experience living victoriously as a kingdom disciple, because we're still yoked up to those things that we should have left. Are y'all with me? And so I use the term yoke because we're going to deal with that today. And so either you're going to be yoked up with Christ, or you're going to be yoked up with the world. There's a term in the scripture in Galatians 5 we'll deal with. It says the yoke of bondage, or the yoke of slavery, which indicates the yoke of worldliness. And so you're going to either be yoked up with Christ, or you're going to be yoked up in slavery, bondage. And so we'll try to build that case as we go. And so the first commandment, the first active verb, in order to get to this beautiful place of rest that God has called us to, he says you have to come. He said you have to come. There's been you're weary of your burdens, you're heavy laden, you're not unable to relax, you're no longer at home with who you are, you can't get rest in your sleep. He says come. He's inviting us to this eternal and continual rest, this twofold rest here on earth. And if you experience in any of those symptoms, or have you ever experienced any of those things, the good news is living as a kingdom disciple can unload these burdens off of you. And so he said to come. Do y'all remember? Y'all want to hone in on come? Tell me a little bit about come. Y'all tell me. Come. I just asked. Right, if you wanted to share, just come. You know, we just saying we had some feedback from last week. Anybody wanted to share? If not, I'll keep going. I just was saying you were there with me.
You said that we have to leave the things that we're depending on.
Look out here. That is a good one. We have to leave the things that we're dependent on. Come. You come into Christ, you're leaving, you're letting go of those very comfortable things. Those very things that you've been dependent on. That was a good one. I remember that because we gave the illustration about Peter. He was comfortable in the boat. Even though it was rocky, he knew about the boat. He's a fisherman. He needed to leave that human knowledge if he really wanted to be a kingdom disciple. Walk by faith. Yes, sir. You got to get out your comfort zone. And so that's where he called us to in this great invitation, not just to salvation, but discipleship. He calls us to come to him, but leave us. Leave our comfort zones. Leave our things that we're dependent on. So it's safe to say that many have came, but the implication haven't happened because we haven't left. Because everything that we came with, we still got it in our hand. Our next verb, he says to take. Now, how can you really take? The word take means to grab hold of, to take, to get. How can you take if you still are holding on to stuff in your hand? He'll never be able to bless you, and you'll never be able to enjoy the benefits. This is practical teaching tonight. Of kingdom discipleship, you'll never be able to experience his rule as long as you're holding on to that which you should have left. Leave. You must leave human wisdom, your human wisdom, and attempts at self-sufficiency behind. Remember we talked about you get sick, you try to go to the corner store? Shoot, I'm gonna take me some Mucinex, Tylenol, I'm gonna beat this cold. And only to discover it gets worse. Finally, you have to go to somebody that knows more than you, that has equipment far beyond your vast scope of knowledge. Go to somebody that has training and experience. That's what he's telling us today. Stop trying to fix it and come. The reason you're stressing, the reason there's no rest, the reason you're easily irritated is because you hadn't gotten the rest, you came. And some of us have come, but we haven't left. And I don't want to stay there too long. Remember on our last illustration before we closed, we talked about the floor technician that had all this vast experience. He knew everything very well. He could make a floor shine with practically nothing. He'd been doing it all his life. But when he came home, there was some simple instructions that he needed to do. In spite of the experience, learn what we have already in place. And because he failed to learn, even though he thought he should have had a good grade, he had showed up on the clock every day, and he had did what he thought was right. When it came time to grade, it was need improvement because he came with his own knowledge and experience and failed to learn the policy and procedures of the company. Brothers and sisters, I believe that happens here in the body of Christ. We come and we learn rules, church rules, we learn traditions, all of that's fine, but we fail to understand when Christ says to come, you are coming not to a religion, but a person. And you are coming to follow. And when you come to follow, you begin to reflect whom you follow. The disciples did not become like Christ. Christ was the teacher. He healed. He set captives free. He laid hands on the sick and they recovered. Y'all praying with me. When Jesus died, rose, and ascended to the Father, the disciples didn't become like Christ. They became Christ. They were the teacher. Y'all with me? They followed to the point that everybody knew who they were. And so the challenge tonight as believers is for us to come and follow Christ. The next active verb we want to talk about is take. I'm trying to get there, and God has gotten me humble because I was just telling him, I said, I left all my book with all my notes in it. I said, well, I guess he knew this was going to happen before I got here. And so he's having me to rely on him and not my human thoughts and what I wrote down and So I'm carefully treading on this because I don't want to miss anything. But he says to take. Now remember I said, if you coming, you got a lot of stuff in your hands, how can you take? These simple instructions is going to lead us to a place of peace, a place of rest, that you'll be able to live as a kingdom disciple effectively down here on earth. You have to give it to him. I got to admit, there are some areas that even though I came, I still brought some stuff. I still didn't leave everything. You walking with me? I came to Jesus just as I was. I was weary, wounded, and sad. You with me? I came to him. And when I came, I left some people behind. See, it was easy to leave them people behind because I was sick of the way we were living. It was easy to leave the club behind. I was burnt out on clubbing. It was easy to leave certain things behind, but one thing was difficult for me to leave behind was some stuff that I had been learned, that I had been taught. Y'all ain't praying with me. The way I have viewed stuff, the way I have processed circumstances and situations. Now, most of the time, it leaves me in the right place. So I'm going to hold on to that. I've been dependent on that. Matter of fact, because I was hurt as a child, I put up a certain wall and I said, well, you know what? This will never happen to me again. It's hard to leave that. Now, y'all wondering, is that really something happened to me or not? I'm just being practical, real talk. That's what happens to people. And I was hurt, and I ain't going to never trust again. And this is the way I'm just going to stay distant. Because people may say I'm antisocial, but I'm just keeping myself safe. And I've came to Christ, and I've left all that stuff, but that I still brought with me. That's hard to let go. That's hard to let go. I ain't going to say it's easy. That's hard to let go your thought process. But that's why Paul constantly says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Y'all remember the ship, the Pelican we talked about? It had 28 million pounds of toxic waste burned in the bottom of the ship. They got rid of the pounds of, they got rid of the 28 million pounds of waste. You know how? 1 pound at a time. Consistently. 1 pound had to go at a time. That's what's going to happen in life. We're going to have to replace human knowledge with spiritual truths, one thought at a time. All right, with me tonight. You want to be transformed in the way that you think. When you have to line up your human thought along with the word of God. And if it does not line up, human thought has to be replaced. That's how we are transformed. And I think I just jumped into learning. And so he says to take it. Now think about this. You got to give it to him. In football, the quarterback is under a lot of pressure. And I don't know if all you know about football, but there's a lot of pressure. Once he comes out of that huddle, once he receives that ball from the center, the heat is on. All of his opponents are trying to attack him. They're trying to sack him. They're trying to take him out. They're trying to prevent him from reaching his destination. They're trying to stop him from making it. They're trying to make it hard for him. But if the QB turns and hands the ball off, if you give it to the halfback, if you give it to the fullback, the pressure that was once on him immediately leaves him and goes to another place. At that point, the quarterback can literally step back and watch the play go, not having to worry about anything, not having to worry about somebody trying to touch him, somebody trying to tackle him or attack him. Y'all with me tonight? Similarly, that's what happened when we come to Christ and allow God to take, y'all with me, to take our burdens. When we begin to live life under, let me read it like this. Similarly, when we are living life under our own strength, our own efforts, our own human knowledge, our own wisdom, we get to experience life's attacks and circumstances on our own. But Jesus is trying to tell us tonight, if you would just simply hand me the ball of burdens, and I, as your leader, will take them. And as a kingdom disciple, you abide in me, yoke up with me, I'll carry the load. He'll carry the load. But we got to hand them off to him. Now the text says to take. To take what? He said, come to me. He says, take this yoke. To take means to grab hold of. You with me? To grasp. To get. Take my yoke. He wants us to take this harness and connect ourselves with him. He's not going to connect himself to us first. You have to connect to him. He's done his part. He wants us to be harnessed together with him. Do any of y'all know about yokes? Now that's a bit. All right, yeah, that's a bit.
Yeah, the yoke.
Yoke goes over the horse's neck.
Over the neck.
To lead it in direction, right?
The yoke goes over the oxen's neck.
There you go, over
He
something.
pulls down on that yoke.
To make it one
Okay.
direction you want it to go.
Mm-hmm. Right. You gonna say something? Okay, a yoke is a harness that goes around the neck of two oxen, connecting them together so they can pull a load. When we yoke up with Jesus Christ, it is a picture of us connecting ourselves to him in surrenderance. You with me? But it's also a picture of us connecting ourselves to one that will help us because we're not pulling our loads alone. That's all right. Jesus is yoked up with you, and he wants to take the load as well as the lead. So being yoked with him actually alleviates a lot of the pressure. That sounds simple in the teaching when you really start breaking it down. We know that when in Jesus, in our relationship with Christ, things are a lot easier. But the text is the imagery is so beautiful because in being yoked with Christ, it alleviates a lot of the pressures that life is designed to bring on us. That's what life is full of pressures. You with me? Okay. Purpose of a yoke or yoking two oxen together is threefold. First off, yoking two oxen together create companionship because they are both hooked side by side. You with me? This is beautiful. This is beautiful because he's not in front and he's leading and you looking back at you, whether you're not there or whether you're there or not, you don't know. He's not in front saying, come on guys, turn around and you distracted. No, he's creating companionship. Companionship means that now we are partnering together. Y'all catch that? He's creating a relationship that you can be a partner participating together in this work. That's beautiful. So number one, he's creating a partnership, companionship, because you are side by side. One is not in front of the other. You familiar with oxen? I'm teaching the lesson, but I never plowed with oxen. Man, mine was John Deere and Craftsman, tillers. But dig it. He said threefold. First is companionship. He says that we're partners, working together to plow. Plowing is a hard, difficult task, especially depending on the ground. And boy, that heat that's like we felt today. Y'all with me tonight? And he says no matter how hot it gets outside, no matter how hard the ground gets, because we are partners together, you never have to do it on your own. Why then do we tend to still try to do it on our own? We have available power and authority ready to assist. But we have to take. You with me? But we have to take. That means I have to grasp it. I have to get it, not receive it. That's where I was going. He didn't say receive it. He said take it. That's an active verb on your part. He's wanting to be our partner, our companion. And he says you have to take it. Where's that scripture? 2 Corinthians 6 chapter in the first verse where he says, brethren, as partners or workers with Christ, I beseech ye that we work together, that we receive not the grace of God in vain. Isn't it a wonderful thing that he considers us as his companions, co-equals with Christ? See, we don't, when we start talking like that, well, wait a minute, but he's Lord our God. We are co-heirs. Co-heirs, I said. Co-heirs with Christ. Joint heirs with Christ. Our big brother. So he's created companionship. That's the first thing in threefold in yoking. When you yoke two oxen together, you create companionship. They began to work together. They began to share, not only in the load, but in the viewpoint. Oftentimes, how did you put it, Reverend Brian? You said a young bull.
It's a yoking of a mature bull with a younger bull.
You'll yoke a mature bull
Teaching.
with a younger bull. You'll take an older bull, more wiser and stronger, and then a younger bull that got that same fighting strength, just don't have the wisdom or maturity. And you'll yoke them together. And they have to work on one job, one purpose, side by side. They're companions. But because one is young and one is old, that's going to be a struggle there. Y'all with me? Because one is wild and one done got the wild out of them. There's going to be a struggle there. But the goal was always to yoke two of them together. And well, let me read this. Agriculture in the biblical days, they would take an older, stronger ox, and he was often yoked with the younger ox so that the younger ox would learn how to yield to the older ox lead and do the job correctly. Y'all see that? Yeah. The younger ox had to submit to the experience, the size, the strength of the older ox. In doing so, the younger ox is technically piggybacking on the power and authority of the older one, thus at the end of the day, finishing the work. Once the younger ox yield and submit to the authority and power of the older ox, watch this, his struggle becomes light. And so many of us use that word, the struggle is real. Yeah, but God is real. And if you learn how to humble yourself and surrender your will to his, you'll understand the struggle is real, but my God is more real. He's stronger, he's greater, he's wiser, and we'll stop praising the struggle but we'll praise the God. I don't know, it just kind of came out there. But yoking the two oxen together creates companionship. He says, take my yoke. Take it. Take my yoke upon you. He says, so duck your head and put that yoke about your neck and shoulders and walk with me in companionship. So it teaches not only companionship, but it also teaches to surrender. That should have been my last point. That's the hardest part. Surrendering. It's like we were talking about that young oxen got to buck for a long time before he's broken and before he understands and learns. That's where a lot of us still struggle. And we don't get the rest that we need because we so stuck in our own ways and we're stubborn in our thinking and this is just all I know. And I don't want to leave this because I'm comfortable here. But if we make the willing, intentional decision to come and take it, we'll be closer to that rest that we're looking for than we really know. Am I doing all right, y'all? Got my notes, I figured. I knew what he was doing. So, not only does yoking oxen foster companionship and is taught surrendering, but it also teaches responsibility. As a believer, there's responsibility when he says to take. Yoking enables responsibility because the oxen were pulling a plow. The younger oxen was able to fulfill its purpose through the wisdom and power of the older oxen. Y'all catch that? The younger oxen is us, y'all. That's it. He's able to fulfill his his purpose through the wisdom and power of the older oxen. It's like you're driving along and you got your big four-wheeler and you riding through this mud and you making your way down this road, this runway. They say, oh, you got it, you'll make it through. You riding hard. But over halfway there, you hit a slope or got stuck in the bog and just couldn't seem to get out of it. And then out of nowhere, you can call AAA or call somebody and they can pull that big old tow truck out. You yoke up with that tow truck. Y'all be praying with me. And when that tow truck with them bigger tires, bigger motor, bigger harness, hook up to you, all you have to do at that point is kick back and enjoy the ride. Y'all ain't hearing me. Y'all ain't hearing me. Because it's the same way when people hook up with Christ. You can go farther than you ever could on your own because, watch this, you are now sharing in his power and authority. That's what the yoke is. His power and authority. And the reason why many of us are not experiencing that, because we haven't taken it. We haven't taken that readily available power which is there for us. The yoke. This is very important because when you begin to talk about yoked and connected, and Christ is saying that your first priority should be yoked and connected to me, you got to start asking yourself the question, then who am I yoked to? If I'm not experiencing this, then who am I yoked to? What am I yoked to? In Galatians 5:1, it talks about another yoke. We shared that. I believe it's 5:1, where Paul, speaking to the church that had been bewitched and tricked by these Judaizers that come in after he leave, and they would begin to teach doctrines that was not a part of what he taught them. He would teach them that Jesus Christ alone saves, and they would say, yeah, but you still have to be baptized in Jesus' name, trying to add religion and the law of Moses to that, to undermine what Christ did on Calvary as being sufficient. And so Jesus then comes and tells them, you've been set free. And so he tells them in 5:1, stand firm in the liberty wherewith Christ has set you free, and be not again entangled in the yoke of bondage. And in that particular passage, the yoke of bondage was considered to be religion. You with me? It was considered to be the law of Moses, something to keep you imprisoned, burdened down. Guess what? And the law was going to only point out your sin, show you that you're wrong, say, no, you're wrong, stop it. That's all the law could do. It could never relieve you from your wrong. It could never save you from your sin. And all it can do is point out, you're wrong, you're going to hell, you ain't right, that step wasn't right, that step was too short, you can't do this. Y'all ain't hearing me. Seems like today a lot of times that's what we hear. Yeah. Never that, Doc, you're free. If you step to the right, well, you need to talk to your God about that. He'll forgive you of your sin. But I'm not your judge. I'm not your critic. Christ died to set us free from that. You ought to be resting in that. But see, Doc, I heard you say that in your prayer. People can't even rest because they're not free in their mind. Well, so he says he wants us to yoke up with him. Not be yoked up with the bondage of sin. I read something about this. Yoked up with him. I'll read you a story I heard about this young man and his son. Story says, on occasion, me and my son would fly together. And this particular time, I requested that we both be upgraded to first class based on my Platinum Flyer award miles. With my platinum status, I'm able to upgrade myself as well as a companion. However, on this particular trip, I was trying to upgrade my son, but he remained in coach. We went to the front desk and asked, why was he not able to upgrade? Especially because, you know, I fly with you all the time. I have frequent flyer miles. I have platinum status. And this is my son. There's no reason why, if I'm in first class, walk with me, he'll have to remain in coach. Do you understand? I'm platinum. I paid the cost. I can upgrade whomever I like. Why am I in first class and he still remains in coach? The lady said, calm down, sir. let me see. She said, oh, I see. Although you are first class and we value your service, although you frequent flyer, and although you have all of those rights, he's not able to upgrade with you because his indicator number was different than yours. Apparently, he purchased his ticket on his own because, he purchased his ticket on his own and you didn't purchase it. Had you purchased his ticket, had he not purchased his own, had he just taken the ticket that but because he purchased his own, he had a different indicator number. I wish I had somebody. And you know something? Many of God's children can't fully enjoy the benefits of living yoked with Christ because we are still yoked ourselves with bondages of slavery to the world, yoked ourselves in our own flesh, even in religion, as it relates to Galatians 1:5. We belong to God, but we insist on plowing our own fields. Y'all Y'all ain't with me tonight. We belong to the master. He has the platinum cards. He has paid the cost. But we insist on plowing our own field, going our own way, following our own lead, doing what we will rather than what he wills us. And then we wonder why. Lord help me now. Then we wonder why it ain't working. Then we wonder why we don't see the power evident in our lives. And the simple reason is we do not get the benefits of Christ if we don't yoke up with him. Come on, y'all. You cannot expect to get these benefits that God has asked, that has for us readily available if you're not willing to yoke up with him. So because of this, the young man has to sit in the coat section, forfeit all the benefits because he wants to buy his own ticket. He wants to plow his own field. I don't know, maybe it may be somebody that I'm talking to tonight that's been trying to plow, and God is plowing their own field, and God is saying, you still asking about the benefits. I know, because I hear you when you pray. I know your desire, but I'm still waiting on the active verbs to manifest in your life. You got to come, and now you got to take. I didn't say receive. That means you can sit back and open up. No. You got to get up off of I wish this was so bad. I wish my situation was like this. You got to get off of all of that talk and do what is required. Willingly take that first step. And then God in faith will do the rest. So to take his yoke upon you, you willingly choose. Watch this, because you yoked up with him. See, if I did this on a Sunday, I'd have had a yoke with him. You willingly choose to go. Put it on speaker, let him hear me. You willingly choose to go where he goes. Say and do what he does. Watch this one. To take his yoke means that you are willingly choosing to adjust your thoughts to what he says. Hello, somebody out there in Facebook land. You willingly choose to surrender. Your victory as a kingdom disciple entirely depends on your level of surrender. Y'all see that? That's pretty deep. I'm going to close. Victory as a kingdom disciple is tied to the level of your surrender. The more you surrender, the more victorious your life will be. The more you surrender, the more you will benefit from, you will see the benefits that he is offering you. The more you surrender your life, the more you humble yourself and say, okay, God, the fight you win, I surrender. The more you surrender, the more rest you'll have. Fighting every situation. Jesus said it's already been won in me. You have to yoke. To fully enjoy relief from your burdens, you have to bow your head before Christ and be willing to accept his yoke. As we've seen, you must abide in a relationship with him, and that includes his word. St. John 8, I believe it's 31, 32, Jesus said, if you continue in my word, then are you my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. You must abide in a relationship with him and his word. Being yoked with Christ is more than just an accumulation of knowledge about him. It involves staying connected. Dick, you said you watch plow oxen. Have you ever seen an oxen get the yoke placed on them and they take a few steps and sit down on you? Sit down. And have you ever seen them start and stop? It is a continual, progressive work. You with me? He wants your personal relationship with him to not only be the most important thing, but an ongoing and continual thing. Don't that just put your mind back to the first and the greatest commandment? To love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. Because that's my most important relationship. He wants us to be yoked with him first. Because watch this, when you're yoked with him, you're in a relationship with him, you are resting from weariness, you are blessed, happy, blissful, and guess what? It never depended on a man or a woman to get you in that place. Then you'll be able to get with somebody else and offer something that y'all with me, offer them Christ. That's beautiful. But you got to be yoked with him to experience it. Let me read one more thing, and I know we got to go. St. John, you know this one. 15, being yoked together with him. And you can read all of that, 1 through about 11, but I'm just going to read 4 and 5. St. John 15, 4. And I'm doing New Living Translation. Remain in me. That's the connection. And I will remain in you. Did you catch that? The active part is you has to remain first. Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it's severed from the vine. You cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Verse number 5. Yes, I am the vine, and you are the branches. Those who remain in me, and I in them, I will produce much fruit. Watch this. For apart from me, you can't do nothing. A lot of us got to understand that if we're wanting this rest, if we're wanting this victory, we have to remain, abide, connected to Christ, yoked with him. And when you're yoked with him, you go where he wants you to go. You think as he wants you to think. Matter of fact, you alter your thinking based on what he has said. My God, you change the way you think based on what he has said. Doesn't that sound like Romans 12, second verse? Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. I want to read it, but I want to read it in New Living Translation. I'm boring you, but I want to bore you a little bit longer with this one. New Living Translation says, do not copy the patterns and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person. Wow. How? By changing the way you think. That's the text. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. You want to change. You want the change to come It has to change by you yoking up with Christ and allowing him to take you from where you are to where he wants you to be. He wants to remove you from you and this yoke of bondage and worldly human viewpoints and transform you into a new creation. Where when trouble comes, you don't panic. Well, when problems come, you don't say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But when in the midst of storms, you'll still have peace. In times of sorrow, when life feels like everything has went wrong, even with tears in your eyes, he can bring you to a place that you still have joy and hope overflowing inside. This is where he's trying to get us to come to when we come to him. But you got to come. Once you come, you have to take it. You have to actively, intentionally do something. And that is to connect yourself with Christ. Take my yoke upon you. When you yoke up with Christ, you are coming into agreement with him. You are saying yes to his will and his way. You're in agreement with God. And how can two walk together except they be in agreement? God bless you tonight. God keep you is our prayer. When we yoke up with him, we'll experience great rewards. Now, through this rest that he talks about, and forever, because he said he's given us an eternal rest into our soul. And so, I don't know if we really unpacked it as we should have tonight, and then we'll pray about it, and if we have to, we may pick back up on it next week a little more. But we want to continue on the studies about shifting from membership to discipleship. This is simply the second active command verb to take. Next week, God permits, we'll talk about the last one, learn. And like I said, if we missed a few things, we'll come back on. Come, take, and learn. Pray that you've been helped, encouraged. God bless you. God keep you. God prayer.
I want to thank Facebook for watching in on us tonight, tuning in.